morning, good afternoon, good evening, yWhales, wherever in the world you are today. So another amazing episode of yWeb3. Today is April 18th. We are literally hours away, less than 24, 48 hours away from the halving. Bitcoin is sitting around 64,000, despite, again, we were kind of like pegged at 70K for quite a bit. A lot of big global events happening, and we're seeing a lot of kind of unrest. We're seeing some very weird weather events. We're seeing a lot of really, chaotic, stories in the news. Some are positive, some are negative. But more than anything else, we're seeing progress moving forward. Investments are rolling back into the space. The VCs are gaining interest again. Crypto is no longer a bad word for today. That being said, AI still dominates the news, and that's why I'm really excited to have the guests that we have today. Love for them to kind of go ahead and introduce themselves. We'll start with you, Vadim.
Thank you, Jay, for inviting on this episode. My name is Vadim Skritskii. I'm a founder of Alpha Data Analytics. For over 10 years, I'm into AI sphere. I'm an engineer and with a background in applied math. For over 5 years with Alpha Data Analytics, we are doing the data mining and sentiment analysis, helping different stakeholders in industry to capitalize on the value of the data. And today we'll be looking forward how to present the value of the data for crypto and Web3 broad area. So,
love it. Yeah, excited to kind of have that intermix of, we have a lot of opinions. I know a lot of people can do a lot of TA and draw a lot of pretty charts, but hearing it from you is going to be great.
Thank you. Thank you, guys. My name is Gleb. Thank you, Jay, for having me here. I'm really excited to have this kind of live stream recorded event, and I want to talk about to tell you who I am and about my experience. I'm a founder of several startups. First one is in fintech industry. We are selling securities through mobile and web application. Generally, it's bonds and stocks. The second one is on early stage of development is social FI startup. We creating a platform, Arc to Earn platform that incentivize users for completing challenges that are connected with self-development. I'm in crypto from, from December 2016. I'm investing a lot in different projects. I'm going through different projects, actually reading the whole white papers, checking websites, social media, sometimes checking GitHub, not only using the analytical platforms for taking decision to invest, but just going deep into the project. What can I say? I'm in the crypto for almost a decade, and I can say that I am a professional and know everything. And I hope that my experience, my knowledge could help someone and provide some valuable insight about the blockchain, about the crypto.
Fabulous. Yeah. And you guys have a very, global, opinion. As we were talking before, we had last week, we talked almost exclusively about Latin America, and their adoption. So really love to have these different geographical, opinions and thoughts about regulation, about adoption, and usage, which is really why we're all here. Like, we all believe over the next decade, like, blockchain will entirely decimate the SWIFT system and everything else that people understand about finance. But the path to get there is not a linear path. There's a lot of lessons and warnings we have to understand. And that's why we love to have experts like you guys come on to help decipher what's real and what's just kind of, fake news. So with that, let's go ahead and dive right into some of the bigger stories that we have right now. Again, there's some really interesting things that are going on in the world. The markets, which were entirely pumped and everyone felt like we're back in a bull, nothing can stop us. Here we go for the halving, all-time highs for Bitcoin prior to the halving, which has never ever happened. People are predicting $100, $200, $300,000 Bitcoin. And we had a global event really kind of shake this in a big way, related to kind of what everyone's been predicting as a black swan event. For those that may have somehow missed the news story, we were kind of cruising along at about, 70K Bitcoin. And then Iran and Israel scuffle decided to kind of escalate. Within 4 hours of Iran launching a number of drones, missiles, and attacks on Israel, we saw massive liquidation events. Literally over $1 billion in shorts got liquidated overnight or within minutes. And it's taken a minute to really understand where it is. So, Bitcoin hit, I think about 60K. So dropped over 10,000. It's hovering right now around 64. But I would say we're on shaky ground. The fear greed index is kind of sitting at almost neutral. But let's go ahead. Vadim, what's your thoughts on, what are we seeing? Literally, like I said, a couple days away from this halving.
Sure, Jay. Well, those events were very informative for us. I'd like to maybe show a few charts coming from Alpha Data Analytics to help address these questions in more details.
This is great.
So I'll be presenting here the charts of the sentiment and how things were unfolding. You mentioned the escalation in the Middle East around evening of April 13th and going into April 14th. You can see over the sentiment that news related to Iran and Israel was gaining steam. The sentiment for that was constantly deteriorating in a few days before the attacks. And surprisingly, that deterioration of the sentiment was correlated with deterioration of the sentiment in the cryptosphere, where Bitcoin had a hit, where probably a safe haven definition might be put under question mark. How it happened that during an escalation episode, investors turned more defensive and skeptical about, Bitcoins, where, quite a bit of voices advocate that, Bitcoin is the safe haven asset. So in this context, we can kind of draw quite a bit of conclusions, from this case, how actually crypto and crypto coins will behave next time where some major escalation or political event can appear.
So in your opinion, in looking at this, because you're saying even before the events, obviously there was some sentiment that was changing. How are you, just define to me kind of how you track that? Because that to me is very real. I use, a very novel, approach, Lunar Crush, which I think does a good job of kind of, understanding the meme coins. But this is much more analytical that I'd love to understand, the difference of how you pull this data.
Sure. Data comes, the Alpha Data Analytics monitors the web. We have tens of thousands of news sources. We analyze headlines and articles, and it includes different sources, including mainstream, including non-English sources, Asia, Africa, LATAM, all kind of everything that we can get our hands on. Real time is being collected, crunched, and what we call an inverse LLM process, or, those chatbots and large language models are producing the text. In our case, we do the opposite. We feed a lot of the data and generate time series to draw some conclusions based on big data and events that are unfolding real time. So in this case, we can see that sentiment got a hit from this escalation. Is it a single example or is it a pattern? It's to be seen, but at this moment, at least, can be kind of detected as similarity, the correlation between those two. That's how you can interpret the chart. Of course, these events are worth monitoring, but they are constantly appearing. So there was the Russia-Ukraine story. There might be something else. So this political turmoil seems to be very major force, something worth watching, because it has a major impact on the sentiment in crypto space. So it's not just stock market or gold or foreign exchange. crypto is a subject of this volatility too. So in my opinion, that's something relatively new and defining.
Interesting. And just go through, like, now we have a crystal ball, but it works backwards a little bit. So define how a trader or, could utilize this data, on this chart right here, when, no financial advice here in this room, but when would someone need to start looking at the signals of this data to say, I need to make a change. I need to look at something different. Cause it looks like a little bit to the left earlier, there was a drastic dip. So it looks like April 1st, there was a giant decline.
Yeah. So April 1st was the initial yellow flag, I would say, where the correlation
of... There was selling of confiscated Bitcoins by US government. And they sent almost, 300 millions. Or maybe it's 2 billions even. I don't remember the number. Let's Google it. So they sent a lot of money to the Coinbase, and it was a confiscated money. So they were planning to sell. So this is actually why we see the decline in the 1st April.
Yeah, it could be one of the reasons, but in the context of the political, this Iran and Israel, Middle East, you could, as a trader, you could detect this correlation that appeared. So the dip happening early April could be connected with Syria, earlier attacks that has happened on the embassy of Iran. And that was the first yellow flag, a warning for traders that Iran and Middle East topic is a driving force behind the sentiment towards the crypto. So given this information, early April, a prudent investor seeing the green line deteriorating earlier before the April 14th could actually take some chips off the table and take a more defensive position, expecting some events that could actually affect the prices of Bitcoin.
What you're trying to say that some conflicts are correlated with the price of the cryptocurrency, but I remember the times when Russia launched the strikes on Syria or somewhere like that, and the price of Bitcoin rose, and it was a significant change in the price, like a 10% in one day. And on that time, I come to the conclusion that all these black swans positively affect the price of the cryptocurrency. But probably right now we are on the different stage of the market development on the time, the timeline. But I remember the times when there was a conflicts around the world, and the price of Bitcoins just immediately skyrocketed.
Before we start on our next topic, here's something really exciting. Everyone struggles with these really highly complex, intricate Ethereum names. ENS has a solution that's really game-changing for you. Revolutionizing your digital identity with ENS. Transform long, complex Ethereum name addresses into easy-to-remember names, safely, securely, and uniquely yours. Visit ens.app to get started today, and ENS welcomes you to the new internet. I mean, the reality is that everyone, you guys have all been in crypto with me for a while. My first Bitcoin purchase was early 2010. And, what I've learned is there's no linear path to, $1 million Bitcoin. And anyone who says they can predict it, is entirely wrong. The DCA approach, just always buying, always holding is truly, one of the most, valid processes over trying to jump in and out and trade this thing, because you're right. There's times where you go, holy crap, the world's going to end. And, let's go back to 2020. All of a sudden, we've got a global epidemic. We've got a global pandemic. There's all these problems going and Bitcoin takes off, through the roof. So, it really is hard because it seems like a dynamic changing thing. And I've always said, the Bitcoin crew, the core, is going to attack the leveraged positions. with any momentum that they get. And so, going back to the thing that I first hit on was they liquidated over $1 billion in shorts. That was good. That's good for business. If you're long Bitcoin. So, Vadim, but coming back to this, I think this is really interesting. So walk us through a couple other charts of how you're tracking this, and what you kind of find interesting, because this is a new way to look at the data that I have not seen before.
Sure. So seeing it through the lenses of conflicts is one way, and certainly it's very complex. Sometimes a black swan might be bullish. Some other times it will be a sell-off event. So in fact, detecting change in the sentiment in the way investors see the market is very critical to be more successful. Of course, dollar cost averaging is very conservative, very, I would say, defensive way. But our assumption is that an investor can do better than just dollar cost averaging, but also timing the market and timing some particular events. So zooming out a little bit and seeing the Bitcoin interest over time, the chart under is showing the number of, mentions, how often Bitcoin is being typed, how often it appears in the internet. And you can see there are different waves and episodes where at first interest is exploding and then fading away, and then this cycle again repeats, and each subsequent cycle is more strong than previous one. You've mentioned that November 2020, and of course, the moments when interest is very low, proven to be a very good entry point. Because investors are mostly underweight or skeptical, or sentiment is rather negative. So these are the sweet spots for the one for bullish investor, the one who wants to accumulate. Since the skew of investors will be rather favoring the long positions versus episodes when there's a peak euphoria and, to the moon expectations and everybody's very bullish. It's a sure sign that market might have a local point, they might be ready for some short to middle term correction.
And this is much more technical than anything that I ever use when I do my trading, which is generally I use, like, if I feel like it's going to go to zero, the project's over, the world is ending, I buy more. when I feel like, holy cow, if I sell now, I'm going to miss, the next 2, 3, 4, 5x, and I'm going to hate myself because, again, I've been in it for so long. And that's when I've tried to teach my sell button that it's like, it doesn't have to be all or nothing. Like, you can sell 5% of your portfolio. And so I start layering off at different targets on the way up. And, because the diamond hands approach, if I just hold forever, it works over 5 to 10 year periods, but sometimes that's not as satisfactory to stay in the game and stay active and understanding. Because I do think it is helpful to be an active trader in some capacities, take profits, and be able to build up your portfolio over time if this is a long-term asset class you want to stay in. I love this data. I wish I'd had this years ago.
Yeah, and in fact, it provides a clear, it provides it's not a, crystal ball, but it provides an edge comparing the broad market and paired with other indicators and other tools investors are using. Tapping on alternative data, which is a sentiment data in this case, is something to build more successful trading strategies.
So the next topic that we're going to talk about, and you might as well just leave that up on the screen, is the halving. And so really that's kind of one of the most critical things. And we all believe, the halving is going to cause, supply shock, which there already very much is compared to these ETFs. What's the crystal ball saying, about the halving? Is there, investor sentiment that it is going to go up, or we can kind of see one of those?
Yeah. To answer this question, we'll need probably to ask the system for previous episodes. So apparently it's not the first time Bitcoin is experiencing a halving event. And right. We might think of how it did perform in the past episodes. So here we have a Bitcoin halving in interest. we can see at the upper chart, it's the sentiment, meaning how positive or negative investors are. And it's quite interesting to see that previous episodes were actually negative. For example, in August 2016, investors treated halving as a negative event for some reason. However, now
they waited almost for 300, 400, 500 days for Bitcoin to reach all-time highs. So it was past the halving, not before. But right now, as you can see from the chart, it's a different situation. It's really interesting.
Sure. I mean, every
sorry
case.
for interrupting.
Sure. I mean, it's not linear, as Jay mentioned earlier. It's not linear. You don't have one rule that holds in any environment. It's very like an organism. One setting might behave one way, in another case, at another time, it can just behave the opposite. Eventually, it's more of like an art than science, I would say, to detect these episodes where a switch is changing and the investors are rather interpreting it differently. And it constantly shifts. Like right now, halving event is seen as extremely bullish happening. And it's for quite a while, as you can see from media, since at least March, all the world media is just keep promoting this topic and about the Bitcoin halving. I'll be worried that it might be a sell the news event when it eventually happens. That's my concern, frankly.
Especially with how institutionalized it is today. And, we saw with the ETFs, everyone said when these ETFs hit, it's going to take off and run. And we saw the first thing that happened was 30 days of sell-offs. Absolutely. It was, people that had said, these ETFs are coming. What we saw it as was the first legal opportunity that they had to liquidate their holdings. Grayscale was outflowing for about 45 days consistently, while BlackRock and others were taking advantage of those inflows and grabbing them. But, no matter how much they were buying, there was a lot of Bitcoin that had never had the opportunity for a true institutional grade legal exit path that suddenly existed, which is good news if you're, in for buying. But, now we've seen the prices stabilize. And I think that we have so many good pipes into Bitcoin. I think we also really understood that a lot of these institutions have no interest in self-custody. Zero. Like the entire reason why why Bitcoin exists, which is like F the banks, F BlackRock. We're going to do our own thing. We're going to, my keys, my crypto is not the narrative that the larger institutions want. They don't want the liability of holding this stuff. So I think there's a lot of interesting things we're seeing right here in this charts.
They want banks, they want Coinbase to provide custodian services, and they don't want to hold it because there is a risks with the security risks. They don't have experience of doing this.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting because from my experience, I was expecting the price to be growing a little bit after the halving. But now we see a completely different situation.
We may ask also for an advice from our chatbot powered by LLM, what it thinks about Bitcoin halving, and to summarize. And the response is, well, Bitcoin halving event is only 2 days away, causing excitement among supporters. However, there are concerns about the potential impact on Bitcoin price post-halving. Some companies are preparing for the event by looking for savings, while traders are receiving warning signs from Bitcoin Cash about the halving. The market is closely watching Bitcoin prices as it continues to drop ahead of the event. So some of the headlines or news might be coming with some lag. So price is very volatile. At some episode, it can be growing. I'm not sure. The last check market was rather green. But overall, it's a certain sentiment of a positive sentiment and excitement, which is kind of tricky environment if you're looking for an entry point as a long investor, in my opinion.
But this is really an interesting software that you guys built. Let's take a second and we'll jump back to the news here. But while you still got this on the screen, just give us a quick walkthrough of what we're looking at, and how you built this, because the combination of, charts and graphs, as well as, natural language, chat, I mean, this is what AI's promise is that someone who has no idea, never been in crypto before, can just talk to it and say, I think I want to buy Bitcoin. When is a good entry point? When are these things happening? Because what we've seen for time and time again is YouTubers have no clue. The influencers are just pushing, scammy meme coins that have no value, no long-term value. So kind of just walk through this in a quick couple of minutes, if you don't mind. And
Sure.
Probably need to come back and do more in depth on this at a later date.
So that's kind of the construction. We felt like our users are missing the connection between the charts, this geeky part with time series, some ups and downs, and how to interpret. It was missing that bridge between the charts and actual natural language, where you can ask in a layman terms, explain to me why the chart is going like this or like that, why investors are positive. And you get a simple, very concentrated answer that summarizes the whole web, well, most of it that we can get access for. And concentrated information is being produced for a user where the user can build intuition and understand better the events that are happening around. Kind of 1 + 1 = 3 in this case, where you have a value of the charts, and it's kind of clear. And then you have a value of a chatbot, which is also, so far, I think, has proven to bring a value. But putting them together gives them even more value in a combination at this point, where you can actually interact with the charts, ask questions, understand the spikes or dips, and question about the recent events, even whatever events we can ask, whatever questions, in fact, we can ask why Bitcoin, returning to our initial topic of why Bitcoin price dropped on Iran escalation. And we may expect to see an answer that, the answer of a chatbot is the price dropped on Iran escalation due to increased geopolitical tensions. Investors reacted to the uncertainty and risk associated with the conflict by selling off their assets, including Bitcoin. As a result, Bitcoin experienced a hard drop in price as investors sought safer assets like gold and oil. So at this point, it summarizes the consensus. So we can think of it as a consensus of the internet, of collective brains of all of journalists, all of the pundits, all of the small and big and institutions. And that's the consensus of those events. So it doesn't mean it's right or wrong. There can be more complex dynamics in the market where some institutions might, trigger stop loss or other dynamics. But at this point, at least, it gives a very simple summary of events and bridges that.
Absolutely. Halib, like I said, you've been in the space for a while. You're reading every white paper that exists. You're jumping through the system.
Not every.
Listen, there's, even if you only read the 1% that's interesting, there's still a lot in there. Would this be helpful for you to be able to kind of help understand? Because when you're reading these papers, and I've written a few of them myself, we generally tend to refer to previous events about here's why we're building this product, and here's the references to the problem. Here's the problem, here's the solution. Would this be helpful for you during your research to be able to say, like, I don't remember what happened 3 years ago and why you're building this thing. But this would be a good way to kind of close that knowledge gap.
Yeah, definitely. For me, it will be really convenient to use it when I have a possibility to write a prompt whether I have to buy this sticker, this particular project or not. And it will be really cool if it will start to persuade me not to buy. Give me this kind of advice to teach LLM in this kind of way that he will just only make precautious, suggestions why you should not buy it.
Yes. Yeah, listen, we all bought in big to dog with Wi-Fi hat, and all became millionaires with that thing. And that was, that was a clear, sound investment advice, which I think that thing is down now like 90%. So, the meme coins are unfortunately, we had the year of the ICOs, the year of DeFi, and NFTs haven't even shown up on the scene yet. But meme coins and dog coins are truly ruling this market. So, but Vadim, this is great. Let's pivot forward, keep going with a few other, news stories, because there is a lot, going on this week. And I know you guys, are watching a lot. So again, everything's about the halving. And I just want to give credit to all the meme pools, for being able to somehow coordinate. It was at some points, it was going to be on the 26th, then it was going to be on the 16th. It looks like they are absolutely locked into a 420 halving. So it will be all the stoners are celebrating Bitcoin. We'll see if it's a buy or sell option. But this is a big event. I think that we've seen the big institutional miners really ramping up their hash power. And we're seeing a lot of the amateurs, kind of selling off their gear. It is going to become much more expensive to mine, and there is a profitability level that most of these guys sit at. And so it is going to become much more hyper efficient, needed. Is that your kind of feeling that you're seeing right now in the mining industry?
Of course, they will receive less bitcoins, and if the price of the bitcoin will fall down, so their profits will decrease. Probably they will shift to other cryptocurrencies that will grow, that will guide us to the growth of altcoins. Hopefully, hopefully, but no one knows what will happen. What I can say that some of the big projects are thinking whether to postpone the SEX listings on the central exchanges that was previously dated to the 20th April. So they were planning, for example, Notcoin. It's famously Telegram bot tap bot when you have to tap and subscribe to other channels. They got a huge covering in Telegram. They got like 5 million subscribers, and they were planning to list their coin on the 20th of April. Now they are thinking to postpone it.
Yeah. It really has been a relatively, good year compared to last year, where we were obviously in crypto winter. But I think it really is kind of becoming very clear now that Bitcoin is going to continue to win. There's going to be volatility. We never, people during the bull cycle last year when we were hitting, high 60s or a couple of years ago, said never will we'll see 30 again. No way we're going to see 20 again. And it, took some big moves and a lot of, really interesting things happening to get us down into the teens, for one more chance. And when I remember talking to people, I said, you're never going to have a better entry point right now than $17,000, $18,000 Bitcoin. And I remember them saying, if it hits 10, maybe I'm a buyer. I said, okay, that's no problem. I said, I'm buying anything under 30 right now, consistently. And we've got a story on the screen right now, which is, Tim Draper, a very, very novel investor, been around for a long time. He sent out a tweet. He invested 300 Bitcoins for 4% of a startup 10 years ago. They just returned to him 15 Bitcoin, and it ended up being a 15x return on his money and current values. But I think it really showcases that there's a lot of different paths you can do. You can jump to meme coins. You can do a lot of different things and swap in and out. But if you've got a long-term cycle, there's never been a period of time where over a 5-year period, Bitcoin has lost. Do we feel that that's something that's going to continue, Vadim?
Well, to answer this question, I'll probably prefer to refer to look into the data. Sorry, my opinion.
This is a great party trick you're at. It's like, hey, so what's going on? Does this argument work with your wife? Hold on, I need to pull up the data.
So returning to the chart.
Generally, maybe you remember that was a contest in 2017. There was an investment fund. He picked 10 the most efficient traders.
Yeah.
And he gave them, 100 Ethereums.
Yeah.
And they started to trade. They started to trade with these Ethereums, and in a 1 or 3 hour, halfway of the year, they checked the balances, and the girl who didn't trade at all, she won.
It is, number one, my investment theses in crypto or blockchain is I do level ones. Like layer ones is to me like that, Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana. Like I have a little bit that I do into layer twos, but outside of that, I do try to avoid, sorry, I did make a lot of money on Doge the last few cycles. But there's, for the most part, that's all just gambling. There's a lot of validity here, but yeah, Vadim, you've got your chart up. So over these 5-year cycles, what's this look like?
Yeah, so just connecting with the things you guys mentioned. So the one that didn't trade had the best balance after a trial period. The reason that people are emotional, that causes a lot of troubles for investors. And that's why the products like this, sentiment, helps to take advantage. Where others are fearful, even Warren Buffett was credited for saying, be greedy when others are fearful.
Yep.
That's the definition, that's the very spirit of a capitalism and of the market and of an investor, an attitude, an investor who wants to beat the market. Otherwise, we'll always look like we'll be either too hesitant when the market is red or be too greedy and, do not fixate, do not cash out some of the profits. And that's the very definition in the setting where solutions like a sentiment is specific for crypto are very, very handy to investors. And to answer your initial question, Jay, about the prospects, according to the data at least, as I mentioned earlier, there is a pattern where if a coverage of 1 quarter, 92 days, is exceeding the longer term 1 year interest, most of the time it indicated the positive episodes. Meaning more investors and more new money were pouring into the Web3 and crypto, which indicated better prospects for investors most of the time. Again, it's not a crystal ball. It's not any guarantee of future returns. It just tells us that at this given moment, more new money flow into cryptosphere. So that's because the pink line exceeds the gray line. But in the same time, pay attention that the trend is somehow rather weakish. It's not as confident as during previous episodes, during previous bull runs in Bitcoin, like the one during December 2013 or during November, December 2018 or episode during January, February 21st. It's rather shy, but nonetheless, it's relatively positive. So if we are talking about short to middle term prospects for Bitcoin prices.
Today's episode is proudly sponsored by Beyond Enterprises, the ultimate 360-degree partner for companies ready to embrace the power of blockchain in their business strategies. Beyond Enterprises stands out as a beacon of expertise with a blockchain agnostic approach that has seen successful projects on Ethereum, EOS, and Arc. Guided by blockchain thought leaders and fueled by inspired advisors, the team has played a pivotal role in over 40 successful ventures spanning token generation events, security token offerings, exchanges, and more. From healthcare to travel, finance, and beyond, Beyond Enterprises has left a massive mark on diverse industries. Elevate your business strategy today with pioneers of blockchain integrations, Beyond Enterprises, trusted 360 partner. Yeah, this is really interesting data. Halib, as you've been in here, since it's 2016. So you came in, right around, Ethereum, and color coins and everything else that they were doing. Looking back at your time and looking at this chart, was it, I'm sure you've made a lot of various investments. I'm sure you've made a lot of, protocols and done a lot of things. Which are the ones that you feel that you kind of missed? Or didn't believe, obviously there's Bitcoin and Ethereum, but there's been a number of other projects that you probably got involved in. Was there anything you felt like you just entirely, like you said, no, I'm not interested in this. And it did become, a standard or did become a protocol such as
yes,
Solana.
Binance, I sold it like, I don't know, $15, 25, then 65. I made a DCI and I was thinking this is a smart DCA out. of my positions, but it turns out that I should be more precautious in case I will have this kind of charts. Probably I wouldn't invest it in XRP if I have this kind of chart, because XRP is my pain in the back. It doesn't bring any returns, and it's like a stable coin.
They're introducing a stable coin, which we're talking about.
Yeah, that's really.
Yeah, I mean, I think XRP is a really interesting one because when we look at this, I would say we're in an early phase of a mini bull. We haven't seen a true, like in a real bull, everything is going up. It's just a matter of how much is it going up every day, and are you getting the most, maximizing. I mean, you remember at the last bull, like EOS was at $15. I don't even, there's other than like 2 or 3 protocols. I don't even know who's using EOS anymore, but it was just like, yep, it's $1. It's got to go up. It's got to keep going up. And so, it gets into some stupid numbers, and NFTs are worth $1 gazillion. We're not seeing that this cycle.
I wish to just bring to the context the NFT topic as one of those, episodes where it's not participating. So just to confirm the observation, this time NFT is not really there. As you can see, the pink line, medium term, is very confidently under the long-term trend. So unless something really, really changes, NFT is not going to catch up with those recent progress on Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies.
So what is the outcome? Is NFT dying, or we should buy NFT? What should we do?
Well,
what does it say about the Bored Apes? Because those are so far down, and they
Bored
were
Apes, 50%.
Yeah, they were the absolute like pinnacle between the Bored Apes and everything else. And this year, I mean, the restaurants are closing. No one cares about them. And it seems like there's a few diehards holding on, but yeah, I'd love to. Oh, yeah, there you go. That confirms nobody cares.
Nobody cares. Sorry. And I mean, usually, again, returning, there is no linear relationship. I mean, of course, you want to buy when others don't care and are fearful, but sometimes bad means bad. So, I mean, to my understanding and experiencing the charts, this looks like it's really hard came to a stop. Meaning the trend, everything is really very bearish in this case. The long-term trend, 1 year, is down. The short, medium term is also under. The sentiment confidently lower. So far, based on the sentiment data, we don't see any signs that life comes back into that space, unfortunately. So maybe something will change. That's why it's worth monitoring data. Maybe sentiment changes and interest returns. But at this given moment, it's hard to say that interest will.
I think it was when they blinded. Yeah. I think the downturn was when they blinded all of their top people at their event with like lasers, and everyone had eye issues. I think that would be the end of my wanting to participate in any of their future events going forward from there. This is fabulous. So let's take a second, and I want to pivot back to a little bit of DeFi space. There's a couple topics as we kind of get closer to rounding this out that I really want to hear you guys' thoughts on. And Vadim, don't worry, I'm not going to be upset in any way, shape, or form. You want to pull the data back up. But this is a really interesting story. So jumping back to a little bit of RegTech, Uniswap, who's been around a while, I would say that they do a really good job on their platform, everything that they're doing. They're very focused. They're entirely decentralized, but they do have a team that is known. They do speak out. They are active. So it's not, a bunch of DAO type voting on what they want to do and how they want to do it. They are professionals. They spend a lot of time on their pen testing and security protocols and everything else. And so because they are known well enough, here comes the SEC, who's issued a Wells notice. A Wells notice, for anyone that doesn't understand that terminology, basically means we would like to collect some information and we're going to be suing you. So go ahead and get ready. SEC has issued Wells notices recently to Coinbase and Kraken, who are both SEC, Coinbase is a public company. managed and monitored by the SEC already to that point, but they still were issued a Wells notice. Kraken got one, even though, again, they are properly licensed to do what they're doing. Now we're into the DeFi space where, again, it's peer-to-peer. This goes back to the Napster model. Like we're just facilitating, information going back and forth. They're not actually holding anything on here. You guys are not from the United States. What do you think when you see U.S. entities attacking and suing decentralized protocols like this? I'll start with you, Habib.
It's really an interesting question. Thank you for this. But it's kind of, I think it's a new precedent because they are kind of suing the protocol, the program inside of the decentralized chain. So it's really difficult to imagine who is behind this chain, and not only I'm not talking about the legal entity, but it belongs to the blockchain. It runs on the Ethereum, as I understand. This is a layer, and generally they are not suing Uniswap. They are also suing Ethereum, suing the other layers, 2 layer 3 solutions. So at the end, what is the purpose of doing this? Yep. This is a program. This is a program of P2P transactions, and what do they want from this kind of activity? I don't know, because if the program is breaking the law, okay, they should prove it. So, and I think if they will prove it, so they need to close it. But how they will close it? It's a program that runs on the decentralized chain. They should stop all the nodes. I don't understand how. It's really interesting because with the XRP and SEC, it was kind of a little bit clear for me how it will go. I know I was predicting that it will take a lot of time to settle, but right now, I don't know. It could take years. How many decades?
And it will. And Ripple to date has spent over $200 million US on their legal defenses against the SEC. And that's not, I'm sure Uniswap has got some capital laying around. I don't know if it's $200 million worth that they can burn on legal fees, but it becomes very scary to anyone that wants to launch a company. Vadim, would you even dream of launching a US based crypto company with these types of kind of lawsuits flying around? Oh, sorry, Vadim, I don't know if you heard me.
Yes. Yeah, I'm sorry, the connection. Well, I'm worried. In fact, US looks like a great location to launch a company. Certainly there's this feeling of freedom and opportunities and large market and a lot of liquidity and a lot of investors and a lot of customers. But when it comes to legal aspects, often it's a risk that might actually outweigh a lot of our advantages. So, and this very aggressive stance of law enforcers like SEC in this case certainly is speaking against having anything in common with US assets. And it's not the first time where SEC is basically putting brakes in the company operations. Binance was also subject to that, such an assault, such an attack actually, where P2P operations were put under question mark. Even Binance had to disable users from Russia and Belarus for reasons of sanctions enforcement. And it was a peer-to-peer transactions, and they kind of followed that, the requests and did the best they could, but eventually business was affected. A large chunk of the revenue was under question. Jay, also I could maybe jump into the chat bot to kind of ask the intranet.
I would love to hear what the chat bot here. Listen, we're going to go back and forth because to me, we can have our own opinions and our own thoughts and understand history. And, I'm an American citizen, so I get to see this stuff every day. But understanding, where's the overall sentiment, pulling from thousands of sources, is very interesting because to me, we want to see more projects like Uniswap. I think it's very well run. I think it's got a good future, in the world of finance, both traditional and decentralized. So, we want to make sure that entrepreneurs want to build these things. Tornado Cash, again, for its positives and negatives, it's a piece of code running. And there's, a really sad programmer in jail because he wrote code. Code is not illegal. How someone uses it, it absolutely, you don't arrest the auto manufacturer because somebody maliciously misused their car. It's up to each individual user to manage themselves. And that's the government's purview, is to manage the users, not to manage the systems, especially if they fall outside of their core regulation.
Well, in such moments, it feels like Web3 is a part of good against bad, conversation. And returning to Uniswap, so chatbot answered that Uniswap token saw a 16% price crash due to fears of a lawsuit by the SEC. Uniswap Labs, the creator of a decentralized exchange, has vowed to fight against the potential enforcement actions. The SEC's move against Uniswap is seen as an attack on decentralized finance.
Yeah.
And that has raised questions about the policy consistency and enforcement. So we see that the global internet is basically critical about the steps, is really giving, no confidence vote, and rather raising not just an eyebrow, but rather asking the questions about the credibility of this law enforcement. So I think this is more broad question, really something that goes far, more far than just the conversation of this panel that we have now. But certainly that's something that swirls the atmosphere.
So let me ask you this question.
Creates hurdles for entrepreneurs
as we kind of bring it a little bit home here. Yeah. So let me ask it this way. Are you guys old enough to remember Napster? Okay. So Napster was this entire peer-to-peer, someone can share their file, millions of people can download that file. It was, argued that it's legal because it's just people sharing and it goes outside copyright laws. And you could argue it either way, but at the end of the day, Apple Music, Spotify, Pandora, and everything, all of them created a legal foundation, legally required rights to that music, and then appropriately paid royalty holders. They've since kind of gone on and become mega, profitable industry changers. Whereas Napster, who again followed this peer-to-peer protocol, has been sued into non-existence and gone. I think they're on their fourth reboot now. Do we feel there's a fear of that happening again, where Bank of America and UBS are going to come out with their version of, kind of a centralized, regulated exchange, kind of exchange looking
CBDC,
thing?
yeah. CBDC,
And we're going to see the Uniswaps just go away over. And again, we're talking over a period of 5-10 years. Napster and LimeWire were very prevalent for a while. Let's start with Halid.
I think that if Vadim will ask his LLM model, what is the most important thing that affects the prices of the cryptocurrency in 2024, I think it will provide the information about the government regulation, about ETF adoptions. So generally, it's a government. It rules the sentiments, because what are the driving forces behind crypto and Bitcoin for 2024? And but it will little bit. I don't think it will ruin everything and destroy. So new Uniswap, SushiSwap will remain. They sue Uniswap, SushiSwap. This is a fork of Uniswap. So they are not suing SushiSwap
yet. give them a few minutes to discover. I think the point that I want to make is there's still peer-to-peer going on today. LimeWire still exists. Napster still exists. There's still peer-to-peer going. But if we kind of extrapolate that to the industries we're at today, and, Uni's moving billions of dollars a day, Swift is moving hundreds of trillions of dollars a day. And they're not even comparable on the levels. And the goal of all this, in my opinion, is to just Swift needs to go away. It's a horrible old, 1960s protocol that has not been updated appropriately. Vadim, what is the smartest person in the room have to say, which is the AI?
If AI was a human, it will get shy. So we see that the main driving forces, according to AI, behind the crypto price swings are actually external events such as geopolitical tensions, like Iranian missile attacks on Israel, or market sentiment towards Bitcoin, halving events, market movements, trends, whale activity, such as whale dumping 1 billion of Bitcoins on Binance, fluctuations in crypto prices on trading platforms, investor behavior and reactions, and global economic factors. Additionally, perceived value and utility of Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies, as well as news and developments within the crypto space, can also impact prices. So apparently the political and geopolitical is kind of one broad term that includes also regulations. So political part is, as we see, the AI places number one. That's what actually is a force to be afraid of, a fearful force. And unfortunately, if we can predict the markets and investors and sentiments, we don't have really tools to predict the sentiment of politicians. We don't have tools to have an early notice about SEC or other, law enforcing agencies. So it's really black box, unpredictable, external force that just any moment can just come and break things.
That's amazing. So as we bring this to a close, and again, it's a really interesting way because it wasn't just my two panelists. We had the AI, in here with us, and so I really appreciate you bringing your technology in here. But as people want to learn more or kind of understand what you guys are working on, let's kind of round it out. Vadim, where can people learn more about what you're working on, and be able, and is your product ready to ship? Is it closed beta, or is it ready to go?
Sure. I mean, we have a few indicators for free in the public space where investors can actually, and any interested party can find us. Like we have a set of fear and greed indexes in public space. You can just Google us, analytica.io, where you can track the market events very simple, very high level. One of them is a crypto fear and greed index, and which at this given moment is leaning towards a fear. But in the morning, it was really extreme fear, so it was a buying opportunity. Sure, so you can reach out over LinkedIn or keep a track on fear and greed indicators that we put in public space to see how it helps you with investing process.
Awesome. Halib, where can people learn more about what you're working on and send you white papers to read?
You can find more information about our projects on the fineup.by and challenge.day websites. First one is a fintech platform that sells security. The second one is a social file platform for self-development. It's on early stage of development. We are searching for investors who have the same vision as we are. We want to revolutionize with people how they achieve revolutionize on how people achieve their goals. So, waking up earlier, taking cold shower, doing sport, and receive tokens for this.
I get up at 4 a.m. every day. I'm in the gym by 5. I would like my tokens for the pain I put myself through every day.
Yeah, your airdrop will be quite substantial. So.
Yes, me and the 5 other people in the gym. Gentlemen, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate this. We will have this up here soon. yWhales, absolute pleasure. Hope this was insightful. Learned a lot today. We'll see you guys next time.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.